I was feeling sick this morning from all the butter and sugar that I ate yesterday. But as soon as I started to feel better after my third cup of tea, I just went ahead and printed out this recipe for Kouign Amann, which is a very difficult pastry. Why do I do this to myself? I was hoping that I wouldn't have enough butter for the recipe, but I just checked and I have enough. I have a problem, you guys. Send help. All right, friends, I guess it's another baking story today, so let's do this. I am making a Kouign Amann. The way that I describe it to myself is it's like a croissant, but in a muffin tin, and there's sugar. So it's just everything that you could ever want in some sort of flaky, delicious, caramelized, sugary breakfast pastry. It's not spelled how you would think, so I'm gonna put that name right here. And the recipe I'm using is from the tastingtable.com. Step 1 was to heat the milk to 115 degrees. It's not quite there. I'm gonna throw it in for another 10 seconds. All right, is it gonna get there this time? Don't mind my old lady hands. I have a skin condition. Another 10 seconds, I think. Okay, right there, I'm gonna add this warm milk to the yeast. Calls for a tablespoon, but the packet actually had less than a tablespoon. We'll see. So you guys have watched me fail at different bakes before and then redeem myself. So for me to say something like, oh, I put less yeast in than the recipe called for, you're probably like screaming at me like, don't do it. But the way I see it, yeast is what makes the dough rise, and it will continue to rise or it will over rise if you let it sit a really long time. So I'm thinking I can just let it rise for a little bit longer if it looks like it hasn't risen enough. That whisking was louder than I thought. This sits for 8 to 10 minutes until foamy. Check it out. So of course I have a small problem already. The milk and yeast mixture isn't foaming, which means the yeast isn't activating. So what I'm gonna do is add the sugar. That's supposed to be the next step. But in a lot of the other recipes I've done, the sugar is added to the milk mixture. I'm also printing out an additional recipe by Bon Appetit because they've never steered me wrong before. And looking at this recipe, there aren't enough steps to make sense. So I think I'm gonna be making a hybrid recipe. Okay, I'm adding the sugar from the original recipe and I'm comparing it to the Bon Appetit recipe. And the Bon Appetit recipe doesn't call for any milk. So, you know, in order not to waste this, I'm gonna have to go with the dough from the original recipe. And hopefully, now that I added the sugar, it's gonna activate the yeast. Okay, we got some foam action going on. I'm not gonna lie, I ended up adding a little bit more yeast. Now I'm gonna bring it over. You can come with me, Ben. I'm gonna bring it over to the stand mixer and add salt and flour and then mix it together. So I'm just gonna take this dough. This is what it looks like now. Pop it in another bowl that's floured so it doesn't stick, and it's gotta rise for an hour. Alrighty, so this recipe basically has two parts. First part is dough, and the other part is just butter. It's very interesting. So the way that croissants work and other pastries that are really flaky, if you look at the sides, they have layers. What's creating those layers is when they bake, there's butter in between layers of flour. And what you do is you actually use chilled butter to make a sheet of butter, and then you do a folding technique that gets all those layers of butter, flour, butter dough, butter dough, butter dough. Somehow supposed to shape this mixture into a 12 by 6 rectangle. First I'm gonna use my hands to like flatten it out a little, and then I might switch to a method which is putting another piece of parchment paper on top and smacking it with a rolling pin. The hand method worked pretty good. Next, I will fold up the parchment paper. And then you take a roller to it just to make it nice and smooth, press all the air out, and refrigerate it for, I'm looking at the recipe, doing this very gently. And then it's gonna get refrigerated for 25 to 30 minutes. I just checked the dough, it's been about half an hour, and it doesn't look like it's really rising, so I am doing the microwave method. If you want to see me do this another time, check my highlights. But what you do is heat up some water in the microwave so it's steaming, and then you put the dough in there so it's in a warm environment and it will rise faster. The dough is looking nice and fluffy. Next, I have to flour this surface and roll this out into a rectangle. I've got my dough rolled out and my butter block wrapped in the parchment paper. Sorry if this is loud. Pull the block out of the parchment paper. Luckily, Bon Appetit had a video how to do this on their website. So you place the block at one end of your pastry mixture, and then you fold the longer end up over it. This is about 1/3 of the way. Then you grab this end with the butter and fold it on top like a pamphlet fold. And it looks like that. Now I'm gonna seal the edges, and you roll it out again, this time in a 24-inch long rectangle. Okay, I've got it rolled out. You can see the butter coming through a little, which you actually don't want to happen because you want the layers to stay separate. You have to work it really quick. You fold this into thirds again. Got it folded into thirds. Then you give it a turn and roll it out one more time. I'm gonna fold this one more time into thirds. Oh no, some of the butter's coming out already. See, it melts really quickly. The next step is actually to freeze. I just greased this muffin tin and I'm about to take out the dough. Here I do. This is about to get rolled into a 16 by 12. Now I'm gonna cut this into 4 by 3 squares, making 12 squares for the muffin tin. Okay, they're cut. It's really cool because you can actually see the layers a little bit. Now I need to sprinkle both sides of these with sugar. One side with sugar done. Just flipping them over quickly to do the other side. And now I'm folding all 4 corners in on itself, so it kind of looks like that. Then you place it in the muffin tin. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at this, they're so beautiful. Look at the layers. Here's the kicker. I'm reading the recipe for the next step, and it says that I need to refrigerate these for at least 8 hours and up to 12 hours. I'm pretty sure on the British Bake Off they did this in 3 hours. Like the whole thing. I need a second opinion. Good news is the original recipe says that I can let these rise for 30 minutes and then they're ready to bake. I'm doing it. Okay, they are about to go in. They rose a little bit, but I really think that's enough. I sprinkled them with sugar, and they are gonna go in at 375 for 25 to 30 minutes. They're ready to come out. Are you ready to see them? So there is smoke because, warning, the butter dripped to the bottom of the oven. But oh my god, don't they look awesome? What? I'm really happy with the way these look. The layers are really great. I already want to try one so bad. And so does Bear.